Hey there, everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss? Where today I'm going to go over another theory I have about WandaVision and how a race of aliens that we have already been introduced to in the MCU is involved. First, if you love WandaVision, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe bell because I see a lot of people hating on the show and I don't really understand it. Give it some time, people, before you judge. But here, I'm going to break down events within the first 3 episodes as well as some characters that have not yet appeared but have been shown in trailers, mainly Randall Park's character Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis, played by Kat Denning. Now, I'm going to admit that this idea came to me after I was watching another movie, but it's a guilty pleasure, so I don't want to admit to watching that movie until the end of this video, because I think if I said the name, you would not take me seriously. But trust me, this theory was keeping me up last night, and after I realized it now, I can't stop thinking about it. My theory is that WandaVision is not only the start of Phase 4, but that it is also the start of the Secret Invasion storyline, which we know is going to be another Disney Plus series, as it was announced at the Disney investor meeting when Kevin Feige announced everything else. First, in case you're not aware, I will briefly go into said storyline from the comic books, as well as the main players in that story, the shape-shifting alien race known as the Skrulls. The Skrulls have a very complicated history that is tied to many of the new properties coming to the MCU, such as the Eternals, the Fantastic Four, Sword, and many characters in Marvel. So I'm going to try and stay as focused as possible. But for the purposes of this theory, I would just give a brief history of them as well as a Cliff Notes version of the Secret Invasion storyline. As shown in the movie Captain Marvel, the Skrulls are a race of aliens that can shapeshift and have been pursued across the galaxy by another race known as the Kree. The Kree were not only in Captain Marvel, but also in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. In the Captain Marvel movie, though, it was shown that the Kree are hunting the Skrulls, but in the comics, the Skrulls are shown to be equal parts of the war. Also in the comics, the Skrulls were experimented on by the Celestials, a group of ancient beings that have also been introduced in the MCU, as Ego was one, and the skull that was created to make the spaceport Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy is supposed to be the head of a Celestial. They created 3 types of Skrulls, but one known as Deviants wiped out the other 2 because of their ability to shapeshift. Now, this also ties into the Eternals plotline, which is another MCU movie set to be released this year, as the Celestials also did genetic experiments on Earth millions of years ago and created the Eternals from those experiments. And we know how Marvel likes to tie everything together, so you have to watch everything to know what is going on in anything. So, these shape-shifting Skrulls can now seamlessly blend into other civilizations and steal technology or take over governments and other positions of power without anyone knowing, which is exactly what they do when they get to Earth. They come to Earth for a specific reason, because of something called a space warp that connects Earth to their planet, which I believe is also in the MCU and is what the Guardians of the Galaxy use in their movies to get around, and it happens to be in the shape of a hexagon, which has been showing up on the show WandaVision already. They infiltrate the Earth just like they have many planets before, and as the Secret Invasion storyline begins, we find out that many characters in the comics were in fact replaced by shape-shifting Skrull imposters, like Hank Pym, Mockingbird, Elektra, Spider-Woman, and others. They attack the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, as well as S.H.I.E.L.D., and try to destabilize all of the Earth's major players, but in the end they are defeated. Ironically though, the state of the Marvel Comics universe is actually left in a state similar to the one we are currently in the MCU, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. has been destroyed and a new group has come to power, although in the comics it is a group named Hammer, led by Norman Osborn, the Spider-Man villain known as the Green Goblin. And in the MCU it looks like Sword has taken the place of Hammer as a replacement for S.H.I.E.L.D. But we don't know who the director of Sword is in the MCU, and how badass would it be if it was revealed to be Norman Osborn. Also, the Young Avengers and the Thunderbolts are 2 teams formed during and play big roles in the Secret Invasion, and those are 2 teams that we know are also coming to the MCU. Another group was created during the storyline who were named the Illuminati, and they acted as kind of a ruling council of superheroes, with leaders such as Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Professor X as part of the group. Since the World Council was destroyed in Captain America Winter Soldier, there would have to be another global ruling body created to police both the superheroes as well as threats to the planet, which opens the door for the MCU version of this group. Finally, in the comics, the Secret Invasion storyline is actually when the Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff, and the Vision begin their romance, so it would be a nice callback to include that storyline as part of the Disney Plus series. So, why do I think the Skrulls are involved in the series at all? Well, in the 3rd episode of WandaVision, it looks like their neighbor Herb is about to say something to Vision, but he cannot complete it before Agnes cuts him off. They are talking about why Geraldine is there, and Herb says she's here because we're all... Now, most people have interpreted this as him trying to say that they are all trapped, but come on, if it were that obvious, why wouldn't he just say it? Wanda rewinds Vision each time he gets a hint about what is going on. So even if Herb told him that they were trapped, Vision would tell Wanda and she would rewind him before he went back outside. I think he was going to say, "We are all Skrulls," And the presence of Monica Rambeau is what makes me think this. Why? Because she is one of only a few characters in the MCU that the audience is aware of that knows about Skrulls. As a child in the 90s, she was introduced to them during the events of the first Captain Marvel movie. So it would make sense that she take a job at SWORD that dealt with an alien race no one on Earth is supposed to know about. See, I think that Westview is not actually a real town. I think it is a training ground for Skrulls to assimilate into human culture, much like how the Soviet Union would create fake American towns and have spies live there before taking on their assignment. I believe that we are going to see Wanda have some type of breakdown, either forced by some dark power or just because of all the loss in her life, and create this new reality around this fake town. Similar to how we saw Thanos use the Reality Stone to explain to Iron Man how his planet used to look. That is why the town looks quite large, but we have only seen a handful of people. It is also why the townspeople are all a bit off, because they don't know how to react to every type of human response, which is why Herb doesn't know that he shouldn't be drilling into the cement, and the Hart family think that eating breakfast for dinner is normal. In my last video, I theorized that Agnes is actually trying to help, and I still do think that. I believe that everyone there is trying to get Wanda out of this, and Agnes and Monica are there because Agnes is actually Agatha Harkness and may work for SWORD, as well as Monica, who is familiar with this town because she is assigned to it. So, how do the characters Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis play into this? Again, like Monica Rambeau, let's look at the last time we saw these characters and what they were exposed to. Jimmy Woo chased around Paul Rudd for the duration of the second Ant-Man movie, which dealt with the quantum realm among other things. Likewise, Darcy Lewis was last seen in Thor: The Dark World, which dealt with the Ether, which is the Reality Stone. So one character was involved in a plot line that dealt with the notion that there is more than one reality, and the other dealt with a concept that could shape whatever reality and matter into something new. Just like Monica, both of these characters are brought into WandaVision because of their prior experience with things that the general public should not know about. I think that the experience of these characters confirms why Monica is there, because she is aware of the Skrulls, and since she is one of the few people that does, she is one of the few people that can also help. Also, I think the toy helicopter with the SWORD emblem might also be a sign that this reality is tied to the quantum realm, since it was obviously shrunk down after it contacted it. While I don't think the Skrulls are involved in the plot as to why this is happening to Wanda, I do think it would be interesting if this is how they moved along the Secret Invasion storyline, showing that besides the two Skrulls we saw in the last Spider-Man movie, that there are actually many Skrulls working with SWORD, which set up the flip side of that coin, which would be the appearance of evil Skrulls as well. My first candidate for that would be Baron Strucker, as he had knowledge of the Infinity Gems that most do not, and did not seem to be at all interested in Hydra's plans. And really, the writers have to pull something off like this if they are going to make an evil infiltration story not seem rehashed, since we just got that with the Hydra storyline in the first two phases of the MCU. I believe that SWORD, including Agnes, and with the help of Skrull agents, are trying to ease Wanda out of this reality that she has created, because they know that if they just tell her to stop, she will bend it again at her will and become deeper entrenched. Well, that is just my latest theory, but you let me know, what did I miss? Do you think that the Skrulls are involved yet? And are you excited to see the Secret Invasion series when it comes out? The comic storyline had huge Infinity War style ramifications for the Marvel Comics universe, so there's no telling how big they're going to make it in the MCU. But I could see it acting as a Disney Plus version of the Defenders that were on Netflix, which was a culmination of the 4 individual character shows before it. It would also be a very easy way to retcon or change certain characters, as that is something that the comic book storyline definitely took advantage of. So the MCU could now say any character they wanted to revamp was all along a shape-shifting alien, and then rebuild that character again in the next phase. But in the end, I think the appearance of Monica Rambeau on the show is the clue that the Skrulls are involved, but you let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, as it really does help me out, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?